Good evening, sci-fi movie nerds. My name is Mike and I'm the Sci-Fi Movie Guy, and this is my spoilers-heavy review of Captain America Civil War. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, please make sure that you do not watch this. Bookmark it for later, go watch the movie, come back and then watch this. Now these are my opinions of the movie, and I'm going to tell you what I liked about this movie, what I didn't like about this movie, and then at the end I'm going to rate it. And I'm going to kind of bounce all over the place. I've made some notes here, so please bear with me as I look at the notes because I don't want to get anything wrong and I want to give the actors their due. So let's start out with, I loved this movie. It was one of the best superhero movies of all time. I put it in my top 2. And I'm going to give you a little rating later and why, but it is fantastic. You have to go see this movie in the theaters. I saw it in 3D. I saw it in non-3D. I don't think you need to see this movie in 3D. You can save the couple bucks. I don't think you need to see a lot of the superhero movies in 3D, so save a couple dollars. You don't need to see it in 3D. Now let's talk about the Russo brothers. They directed this film, and kudos to them. The Russo brothers had their start in comedy. They did the pilot episode of Arrested Development. They did the pilot episode of Community. Really, really good comedies that went on to have very long runs. And who knew that these guys would be such great action film superhero directors? But they are. They blend the right amount of comedy, they blend the right amount of action and the right amount of emotion in a movie. They combine all three. And this has been my biggest complaint about the DC cinematic universe is they can't do it. They don't know how to do it. And Zack Snyder, I don't think he's the right guy for the job over there. But I'll get into that a little later. But the Russo brothers, they know how to do this. And of course they have Disney backing them and Marvel and great screenplays and great actors. So yes, it's a package deal. But the director is what makes the actors get into their roles. They help them, they coach them, and these guys know how to get the best out of their actors. Now, not all of them. I had a few little complaints about some of the acting in this movie. Again, not really huge deals. But for the most part, this is a great superhero movie. I want to start with Spider-Man. He only had 2 scenes in this movie. It was very minor. He might have been in 18 to 20 minutes of this movie, and the fight scene that he's in is about 18 minutes long. And then he had one minor role before the fight scene. And let's start about that. So they didn't get into his super huge origin story about him getting bit by a spider and getting powers. The first time you see Superman is they flash to Queens, and they're showing Queens in the background in New York. And I knew right away as soon as I saw Queens, okay, this is where Spider-Man gets introduced because he's from Queens. And they show Peter Parker, but they don't show his face. They don't show the actor's face. By the way, Spider-Man is played by Tom Holland, a great actor. He did a great job in this. And he walks up the stairs to his apartment and walks in and sees Tony Stark on the couch with Hot Aunt May. I like to call her Hot Aunt May, played by Marissa Tomei. And they are sitting there chatting, and Peter Parker is dumbfounded. Why is billionaire Tony Stark / Iron Man in my living room? And he goes, oh, didn't you tell your Aunt May about the grant? And of course, Peter Parker has no idea what he's talking about. So they have to play that up a little bit. And then they go into his bedroom and Tony Stark asks him, finds his costume in the ceiling. And he's trying to hide it from Tony Stark that he's Spider-Man. And finally, Tony Stark says, why are you doing this? What motivates you? And this is one of the best motivations I've ever heard. He goes, I got powers 6 months ago, and if I didn't act with my powers and somebody got hurt, it would be my fault. That is a great piece of writing, and the kid played it well. I believed him, that he honestly felt that if he didn't act with his powers and do something for good, that it was his fault when people got hurt or people died. Now, Tony Stark loves this answer and says, "Come on, kid, you're with me." And that's how he starts recruiting people to be on his team. Now, Spider-Man has some of the greatest things in this movie. When he's in the fight scene and he's fighting all these different superheroes, he keeps stopping and he's awestruck by the Avengers. At one point, I thought he was going to stop and ask one of them for an autograph, because even while he's fighting, he's talking to them and asking them questions about things. And I think one of the superheroes even says to him, "You know, there's not usually this much talking in a fight scene." He goes, "Oh, sorry. And he keeps fighting. It's great, the humor that the Russos and the screenwriter put into this movie, and the Russos know how to balance it properly. There was never any stupid comedy quips in this movie that took away from the fight scene, like there was in Batman v Superman when they go, "Is she with you? Oh, I thought she was with you." You know what? That wasn't funny. And this was funny. But it didn't take away from the fight scene. It didn't make the fight scene pause. It didn't bring down any of the momentum of the movie. Also, Spider-Man has a reference to Star Wars, and we know Disney is running the Marvel Cinematic Universe and also the Star Wars universe. And I like the fact that Spider-Man in this movie is played by a kid instead of this grown adult with beard hair, because Peter Parker was a kid when he first became Spider-Man. So I like that, and he dates himself, and he's yelling as he sees Ant-Man turn into Ant-Man, huge Ant-Man, and he yells at the other guys, "Hey, have you guys ever seen that really old movie, The Empire Strikes Back?" And the old guys know exactly what he's getting at, is in The Empire Strikes Back, when they're on the planet Hoth, they use the speeders to do cables around the legs of the AT-ATs and knock them over. So Spider-Man goes to Giant Ant-Man and uses his web and sprays it out and swings around the legs of Ant-Man, and then Tony Stark, Iron Man, and the other Iron Man fly into his head, knock him over. And it's just a really cool nod to Star Wars. I know all the Star Wars fans in the movie theater, there was that giggle because they paid homage to Star Wars. That Disney and Marvel took the rights of Spider-Man away from Sony, because I think they're going to do a much better job. As I said before, Marvel and Disney do superhero movies right. And now that I know Spider-Man is in their hands, I'm really excited to see a standalone Spider-Man movie. So let's talk now about Black Panther, played by Chadwick Boseman. Again, motivations are such a key role in believing what the character is doing in the movie. And Chadwick Boseman is a phenomenal actor. In this movie, his father gets killed by Bucky, Winter Soldier, or so they think. And then we have him out for revenge, and he wants to kill Bucky. But the actor makes you believe it. I thought this actor, Chadwick Boseman's dad, had died in real life, the way he played this. So again, that's the Russo brothers pulling a great performance out of him. And then Black Panther, throughout the entire movie, his motivation is revenge. Now that changes at the end of the movie, and he doesn't go for revenge anymore. He goes for justice, and he doesn't kill the bad guy that had killed his father. We find out later on that Zemo, who's the villain, and Zemo is being played by Daniel Bruhl, who I really think is a good actor, had a mask on that looked like Bucky Winter Soldier, and was actually the one that killed his dad. And in the end, Black Panther, he's going to kill himself. Zemo's going to kill himself, and he stops him from doing it. And he goes, "No, you're not going to do that. We're going to put you in jail." Now, again, I don't know if it was justice or because he wanted to die, he's not going to let him die, and that was the best revenge ever. I don't know what the motivation was, but whatever it was a great arc for this character of Black Panther. Now, I looked up Black Panther because I wasn't too familiar with him, and he's from this very small country hidden in the mountains. They keep to themselves. They don't really deal with the outside world, and they have a lot of technology, a lot of medicine. I guess they have a cure for cancer. They have flying cars, but they don't tell the world about this because they're very isolationists, and they worship God, which was the Black Panther, and there's this big Black Panther statue in their country. And I guess somebody always takes on the mantle of Black Panther over the years to protect this little country. And I guess they allude that it was Chadwick Boseman, or Black Panther's father, that had done it, so he passed it along to his son, who is now king. His Black Panther's father was king of the country, and now his son is. So now he's Black Panther, and it's just a great story. Like I said, I can't wait to see the standalone movie. And honestly, I don't know why they made an Ant-Man movie, because it was okay. It wasn't great. They should have made the Black Panther movie. But you know what? I like the way they introduced it here, gave him some motivation, and then maybe we'll get a backstory for before this, or I don't think we need to, though, because I think we got a good enough backstory in Captain America Civil War that we could see what he does in his own country on his own, and how he protects that country. So Black Panther, fantastically used in this movie. Now I want to talk about Black Widow, played by Scarlett Johansson. My second favorite performance in this movie, behind Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. She is the key to holding the Avengers together in a lot of these movies, and she is so well used in this movie. She is the double agent, Natasha Romanoff, and she plays the double agent because first she's helping Iron Man's team, and she's on Iron Man's side fighting, and then later on when Captain America and Bucky are trying to get away, she helps them get away at the end. And it's really great because you expect this out of Black Widow. She likes to play both sides. She wants to be everybody's friend, and she plays it in this movie really, really well. And again, this goes back to the script writing again and the directing. They just know how to make proper character development so that you believe everything that's happening. I love to escape at movies, and maybe I'm a little too critical sometimes of them, but this one, it was hard to find anything to be critical about. And Black Widow, they're now saying, is going to have her own standalone movie, which I am super excited about, because I've been saying that for a while, that you need a Black Widow standalone movie. And yes, there will be a few Avengers in it. I think it might even give them a chance to have Falcon, no, not Falcon, sorry, to have, let me just see, Hawkeye, to have Hawkeye in that movie, and maybe get a little bit of a bigger role than he has in these movies. Although I don't mind the way they use Hawkeye, because the actor that plays him is a great actor. But that's what Marvel does so well, is they have all these great supporting characters, and they don't put them in too much so that you have to have an extra long movie and justify them being in it. No, they're in it just as much as they need to be. So very excited about a Black Widow standalone movie. Quickly want to talk about Falcon and Bucky, the relationship they have at the beginning of the movie when they're on Captain America's team, and Bucky is the Winter Soldier, and they're in a car, and he says, he's in the back seat, and he says, "Can you pull your seat forward a little bit?" And he goes, "No." And it's, again, something you could see happening in real life for two people that don't really like each other, but they're in the car and they're heading out to get Slurpees and go see a movie because they're with the other friend that they both like, and he likes both of them, but they don't get along quite that well. This is why these movies are great. They take little snippets that you can relate to in real life. And this was just a real life, quick 2-minute scene, but it had an impact on me because that's what these writers do. They put in little things that we can relate to. Now, Falcon didn't have a huge role in this movie, and he didn't need to. Bucky the Winter Soldier had lots of things because he was kind of the whole reason why the Avengers were fighting each other. One of them wanted to take him in. The other ones wanted to save him because he's Captain America's old buddy. Now, we get into Hawkeye. Jeremy Renner plays this guy, and he does a great job. Only in the movie for a few seconds, but when he's in the movie, it's relevant. Now, Scarlet Witch, another super strong female character in this, and she is played by Elizabeth Owen, great actress. This character starts the whole process of oversight on the Avengers, which is what the whole overlying movie is about, is the United Nations wants to put oversight on the Avengers so that they can't just go out and do whatever they want. And at the beginning of the movie, and this fight scene at the beginning of the movie, which is about, I'd say, 8 minutes, 9 minutes, is very much overlooked because of the other two giant fight scenes in the movie. But it's a great opening action sequence. And Scarlet Witch, has a lot to do with why it all starts. I mean, it's the icing on a cake, because we saw it in the Avengers movies where they destroyed all these different cities and the world was getting fed up. But there's this grenade, and it's with Captain America, and it's a guy in front of Captain America who's doing a suicide bomb, and Scarlet Witch surrounds this guy with a force field to save Captain America, and she's having really a lot of trouble containing the explosion, so she pushes it up in the air, but it's right next to a building, and she's trying to get away from the building, and she can't, and finally she loses control, and the one side of the building explodes, because that's where the explosion happens, and there's innocent people that are killed, and that is the final topping to why they need oversight. And I love the way that they gave her a great role in this movie. We haven't seen in the past a lot of strong female characters, and they had two really strong female characters in this movie, and they were both played very well. Now, I want to talk about the relationship and I just have to scroll down here for a second, because this is one of the things I didn't like about the movie, was the relationship that she had with Vision. So Vision is the robot with the eye, and he can shoot lasers, and he was basically babysitting her halfway through the movie because they were afraid of her, so they kind of confined her to the house, and he's babysitting her. Vision, I do not like this character. I didn't think the actor did an overall great job playing this character, and probably could have had this character taken completely out of the movie. On the other hand, the Scarlet Witch, probably one of my top 4 performances in this movie. So Vision, get rid of him, no big deal. Scarlet Witch, top 4 performances, because really that's all he did in this whole movie was babysit her, and he did a little line of with his laser beam on the cement in the airport scene to stop them from coming forward, the one team. But other than that, really irrelevant in this movie. Now we get into the villain of this movie. And that's the other thing that I didn't like about this movie. Now, the villain is Zemo, played by Daniel Bruhl, who is a great actor. I like him as an actor a lot. And I mean, I would have taken this role too. But you didn't need a villain in this movie. Now, thank goodness it was a very minor villain. They didn't waste any of the bigger villains, although Marvel has never been very good at doing villains. That's the one thing I say DC always has over Marvel, is the way that they portray their villains. They just can't seem to get their superheroes right, with the exception of Man of Steel, which was a great movie, and then back to the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, which were really good. But they didn't need this villain, because all of the motivations that were happening for these two sides to fight did not need a villain to interject. And I probably sound like a broken record, because that's exactly kind of the things that I said about Batman v Superman. And I hate doing these comparisons all the time, but really, they are very similar movies with just less superheroes in the Batman v Superman. And the fact that Marvel did it so much better than DC is the reason I'm comparing it, so you can get an idea. So, we have Daniel Bruhl. I think it was poor writing of the character, because it was a throw-in. You need a villain in a superhero movie. Did not need to be there. Probably my biggest complaint about this movie. Now, I want to talk about Ant-Man. Ant-Man, played by Scott Lang, was perfectly used in this movie. Again, I said before, I didn't think they needed a standalone Ant-Man movie. This is how Ant-Man needed to be used. They kidnapped him, put him in a van. They open the door, take off the blindfold, and he sees Captain America there and his little team. And he's awestruck, just like Spider-Man was. Oh my God, Captain America. And they recruit him on their team. And Paul Rudd is a great actor. Scott Lang, not Paul Rudd. Scott Lang is a great actor, and he plays Ant-Man very well. And the two scenes that Ant-Man has, I already talked about when giant Ant-Man comes up in the fight scene, and they really played that part well. But the funniest part about Ant-Man was the part where he flies into Iron Man's neck and starts going through the suit and pulling out all these plugs and destroying the suit. And then Tony Stark does the fire suppression system to get him out of the suit. It just really, again, well-developed minor characters and giving them a reason to be in this movie. So that's all I really have to say about Ant-Man. Well acted, well performed, well written, and he's in and out of this movie pretty fast. So now, before I talk about the two main characters, Iron Man and Captain America, I want to talk about the fight scene at the airport. Now, a lot of people on the internet are saying this is the best fight scene in a superhero movie ever. I think it is. It is well choreographed. It has the right amount of action. It has the right amount of comedy. It has the right amount of passion. It has the right amount of emotion. And that is very hard to do for 18 minutes. You get bored with it when you're sitting in a movie theater. Well, I can tell you I was not bored during this fight scene once. It just kept going. They had the right amount of talking amongst the characters. The CGI in it was great. Like Spider-Man was completely CGI in this fight scene, and then voiced over by the actor that played Spider-Man. And you really, I mean, yes, you know it's CGI because of the way they're doing it, but you're so into this movie, you don't really notice it's CGI all that much. And that's how I know they're doing CGI well, is when you don't think it's CGI because you're so enthralled in the scene. Yes, I think it's the best fight scene ever, but would the Avengers have really fought each other this hard? They were not pulling punches a lot of the time in this fight scene. So, again, superhero movie, you have to take everything with a grain of salt and say, I'm going in just to enjoy it, and that's what I did. But, man, they were not pulling punches in this fight scene, and it was really, really cool. But would they have done that in real life? Probably not. Now, we go into, let's talk about Captain America, because this is his story. And without him in this movie, you don't really have the story, because he's defending his old army buddy, Bucky, who is the Winter Soldier and is used as a pawn. They brainwash him and they made him do stuff that he didn't want to do. And so Tony Stark doesn't really care, and that's why they all split up. So you really see Captain America go through a lot of emotions during this movie. Well, I'm with the Avengers. I don't believe that we need oversight, whereas I'll talk about why Iron Man did think they needed oversight when I talk about that character. But he really, and this is Captain America, who's rah, rah, rah USA in the very first Captain America movie, but he got used by the bad government. And so he's been burned over and over again. And finally he's like, nope, you know what? We can run ourselves. And what if they send us on a mission that we don't agree with? Then what? Well, I'm not having any of that. I will decide what missions I go on, and I will decide what's important. And that's a whole new Captain America, which again, I love the way they flipped it. If you were to say when this movie first came out and it was the teaser trailer, who was on the side of the law and who wasn't, I would have said the opposite. I would have said Captain America believes in oversight and Iron Man doesn't. But no, they did a nice twist on it. And I know it's not exactly like the comic book Civil War, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be. This is a cinematic universe. If it was exactly like it, you wouldn't need to go see this movie. So no problem there. And the only thing that I don't think, and Captain America is played by Chris Evans, I don't think that he did the best job of acting in a lot of the scenes in this movie. he kind of wrote in a couple. He's very stoic. And I know Captain America is supposed to be a little bit more rigid. He's a soldier. But I just didn't feel the same emotion out of him until the very end fight scene, which I'm going to talk about later, when he gets up and he goes, I could do this all day. Then I saw the emotion in him because he had just had a big fight with Iron Man. But other than that, I thought the performance might have been a little weak. Now I know I'm going to get a lot of haters saying, "Oh, what are you talking about? He was great in this movie." Well, I didn't think so, and that's why everybody's allowed their own opinion, and that was mine. So now we get into Iron Man, Tony Stark, the best performance in this movie. Robert Downey Jr. signed on to these movies for a reason. He didn't have to. He is a brilliant actor. He has done a lot of great movies. But he signed on because he knew that Marvel has good writers. And they write the Iron Man character well. Now, I said in my non-spoiler review that this is a Tony Stark that is very different from the first Iron Man movie where he was a playboy and he was cocky. And he has been through the ringer over these last movies, the 3 Iron Man movies, the Avengers movies. And now he's like, you know what? I've seen people die because of us. I've seen buildings blow up. And in this movie, this mother stops him at an elevator and says, here's a picture of my son. You know what he did? He decided, and he was an honor student before he went to university, he was going to take the summer off, but he didn't go to Las Vegas. He didn't do this. He decided to go and be a missionary worker and help people. And he died because of the Iron Man, because of the Avengers. So this is Tony Stark's breaking point. And not to mention Pepper Potts and him aren't together anymore. They get into that a little bit. So he's lost his girl. He's responsible for killing this kid. And he's just grizzled and done. And he knows he needs to help the world. But he thinks, no, you know what? Oversight. And I think it's almost that you're going to take it out of my hands, so I'm not responsible for this anymore. And I believed it, that's what happened to Tony Stark. It's like a dog. When you see these dogs at the Humane Society and their owners have hit them, they're shy away and you can barely pet them and you feel so bad for them. Well, I feel bad for Tony Stark in this movie because he's a beaten dog. And again, I believe it because Robert Downey Jr. is such a great actor. I mean, he's sitting in the back when they're all being told by the Secretary of State that, you need to sign these Wachovia Accords to have oversight by the United Nations. And everybody's pitching in their 2 cents, but Tony Stark's sitting in the back corner not saying anything, and he's just got his head down. And if you watch the movie for a second time, when they're doing that, watch Tony Stark while they're having their conversation. Watch Robert Downey Jr. He is acting in the back corner silently. And that is very hard to do when you're not supposed to be the focal point of this movie. And I didn't notice it until the second time I went to see it. But he is acting with his head down, just kind of laid back in the corner. He is acting, saying, not saying anything. That is the sign of a true actor. Now, when he finally does get up to say something, he's very aloof. He's very pissed off. He makes a reference about, what am I running, a soup kitchen here? Because somebody had put coffee grounds in the drain. So he's still got his quips. But you can see the frustration in this character. And he doesn't really want to tell them why, but he finally tells them why he's on the side of oversight. And Captain America says, no, I'm sorry. I can't sign this. I can't do this. And he gets up and he leaves. And that is the beginning of the big fight that happens at the end. Now, I'm going to talk about this fight scene at the end. And I want to preface this by saying that it's probably one of the best motivations I've ever seen for an end fight scene. So I'm going to set this up for you. During the movie, you see the Winter Soldier Bucky having to steal the blue plasma that they put into the Winter Soldiers out of the trunk of this car. So he makes this car crash, opens the trunk, and takes out these blue packages. And we see this twice in the movie from different angles. And so we see it's an old car. It's back in the 70s. And he steals this. And again, he's brainwashed into doing this. He's not himself. He's been brainwashed to become the Winter Soldier. And they make other Winter Soldiers out of these blue packages. And that's what kind of happens at the end, is they went to this big snow mountain range. So Captain America and Bucky go there to try to stop Zemo from letting the Winter Soldiers out. Iron Man shows up, very conveniently, I might add, because it's very convenient how Zemo gets them all to be there, because his end goal is to break up the Avengers and destroy them. And what happens is he shows Iron Man this video. And it's the third time we've seen the video of Bucky stopping the car, opening the trunk. But this time we see the whole video. And it's Tony Stark's parents in this car. And Bucky kills them. So they're in a car accident. These people aren't dead. And he walks up and he kills them. And Tony Stark is standing there watching this video, watching the guy that's in the room with him, Bucky, Winter Soldier, kill his parents. Now, he doesn't go apeshit right away. Instead, he looks at Captain America, Steve Rogers, and says, "Did you know about this?" And Steve Rogers is like, "Oh, well, I didn't know." And he goes, "Did you know?" And this is the best performance that Steve Rogers had in this movie, where he said, "Yes, I knew." And it's also one of the best performances without talking. You see his face, Robert Downey Jr.'s face, because at first he's so sad seeing his parents die like this, and then he's so angry about seeing it when he says, "Yes, I knew," because he's mad at his friend that he knew and he didn't tell him, and that he's backing up Bucky, who killed his parents. Now, Captain America knows that it wasn't really Bucky doing this. He was brainwashed. But I'm telling you, if somebody showed me a video of a guy killing my parents, and that guy's standing in the room, I'm going to lose my shit no matter what the reason is. And that's what happens. Iron Man loses his shit. And he goes after both of them. And this, you think that this is the greatest fight scene of all time, and it's the best multiple superhero fight scene of all time. But the end fight scene between Iron Man on one side and Captain America and Winter Soldier on the other side fighting is the best fight scene of this movie, I think, but not the greatest superhero battle of all time. They fight, and Captain America actually winds up winning the fight at the end by throwing his shield into Iron Man's chest where the power plate is. And I mean, they do not pull punches in this fight. I thought somebody was going to die. I think in the comic books, Captain America dies in this scene. But in this movie, nobody dies, which I'm okay with. I've always said I like superhero movies to be for kids, and I didn't think you needed to have a death like you did in Batman v Superman again, where Doomsday killed Superman, but he's not really dead. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about that movie anymore. But this fight scene at the end, I said Captain America, when he gets up from just had the crap kicked out of him and says, "I can do this all day," was a great moment between them. And then Captain America beats Iron Man and he's down and they're walking away. And Tony Stark says, "My dad built that shield. You don't deserve that shield." And Captain America thinks about it and goes, "You know what? You're probably right." And he drops the shield and walks away. And that's not the total end of the movie. They do a little wrap up, but the Avengers are split up at the end of this movie. Some of them are not even superheroes anymore. Some of them take off. Black Panther goes back to his country. And it was a great ending to a movie. There wasn't this super reunion and everybody's happy together. They left it hanging for Infinity Wars. And I am now so excited to see Infinity Wars, and I really wasn't before, because I wasn't a huge fan of the Avengers movies. I liked them. They were good. But now I can't wait to see Infinity War. So that's what this movie did for me. it set up the next few movies so that I am super excited. So let's recap. I'm super excited to see a Spider-Man standalone movie. I'm super excited to see Black Panther, Black Widow, and the 2 Infinity Wars movies. So this movie has set up 5 movies for me that I am going to be there opening night watching. So did Disney and Marvel do their job on this movie? Absolutely they did. They brought in great writing, great directing, great actors. Storyline was 100% there. And they set up their universe for 5 other movies that everybody like me is going to be out there seeing on opening night. And that's why I said at the beginning of this, Marvel and Disney do superhero movies right. So what do I give the score for this movie? Well, in my non-spoiler review, I said it was an 8.5 out of 10. My buddy Gil said to me, after you see it a second time, I think you're going to change your score. I have changed my score. I am now going to give it a 9.2 out of 10. And I'm not giving it a 10 out of 10 because 10 out of 10 is The Godfather to me. It's those kind of movies that are just so epic. 10 out of 10 is The Empire Strikes Back for me. Those are the movies I will give 10 out of 10 to. This movie I'm giving a 9.2. And The Force Awakens I gave a 9.3. So The Force Awakens was just one step over this movie for me. And again, I am a huge Star Wars fan if you've watched any of my videos. So this is almost as good as The Force Awakens for me. Now, I still think Dark Knight with Heath Ledger and Christian Bale is a better movie. I gave that a 9.5. But that's just my opinion because I'm a DC guy. I'm probably biased and I love Batman. But for Marvel to get a 9.2 out of me, this is my favorite Marvel superhero movie. There's a couple others that I really liked. I really loved Iron Man 1. I loved Thor 2. I liked Winter Soldier. So there are some other great Marvel movies, but this is my top for the Marvel movies. So I want to say thank you so much if you watched this video. I really appreciate the viewers out there. If you want to send me an email, I will answer all questions that people send me through email on my weekly show. I just put up weekly show 6, so I hope you'll go and watch it. My email address is sci_fi_movieguy@yahoo.ca, or please follow me on Twitter @movieguySci-Fi. And thanks a lot for watching, and just remember, nerds rule the world.